She was on the west end of a dirt turnout off of Sunrise Highway in San Diego County, the east part of San Diego County. She was next to a brushy area. She was covered up with some type of garment, which investigation revealed was a long party dress. She was nude. Her undergarments had been cut off, as well as her dress, and placed on top of her nude body. A gentleman walking a dog, the dog alerted to what the dog had sensed, and the individual that was walking his dog found the decedent, notified the sheriff's office, and then I was called out. There was indication, confirmation as a matter of fact, of what is known as a brush out, which means that the perpetrator or perpetrators had used brush from bushes and plant life around there to essentially obliterate any shoe impressions or tire impressions around the scene.
In this recent book, there's talk about Ronald Porter had, former Marine, that there was Marine training. All Marines got trained in brushing out crime scenes. What do you make of that?
This is absolute baloney. Marines are not trained to brush out anything unless they are in a specific assignment where that might be of some necessity. I read some language in a book written by Larry Averick, who stated that beginning in boot camp, enlistees, young Marines are trained in brush out. Nothing could be further from the truth than that ridiculous statement. That just doesn't happen.
Does that indicate that a law enforcement person might be involved in the crime?
It doesn't indicate that a law enforcement person was involved. It does, but it certainly leads in a reasonable and well-trained homicide investigator to look in that particular direction, and particularly when you find out the type of a lifestyle that the decedent may have been involved in.
In Ronald Porter's series of crimes, murder, rape, kidnapping, attempted murder, Donna Gentile would have been one, if he did it, would have been one of his first victims. There's, by my count, 1, 2, 3, 4 of his other victims where there was no brush out of the crime scene subsequent to Donna Gentile. What does that tell you?
That there was no evidence of Mr. Porter being involved. I'm not here to endorse his innocence regarding other cases, but there's absolutely no evidence of him being tied to the Gentile case.
Okay, gravel in her mouth. Larry Averick says putting the gravel in the mouth of a rape victim is fairly common. He's seen it in other crimes, and it's done to keep the victim from screaming. What do you make of that?
It's a crock.
Why?
Because it doesn't happen in that as frequently as that. I've investigated virtually hundreds of sexual assault cases, and it is very, very rare. And it's very rare, as a matter of fact, as far as homicide victims are concerned. Having rocks or gravel or some such thing tapped down to an individual's windpipe is very, very unusual, and it is very rare. I don't care what Mr. Averick says. The gravel wasn't just something that was basically forced into her mouth. It was literally tamped down her throat. The cause of death was asphyxia, even though her neck had been fractured at the second cervical vertebrae. The problem is there is no evidence of a police involvement, although she was on the payroll for the Internal Affairs Division of the San Diego Police Department, informing them of police officers. She was targeted. Is that the reason she was murdered? I don't know, but it certainly is a consideration.
Do you think her case will ever be solved?
That's a very, very difficult question to answer. I would my suspicion is that had that stupid task force not been formed, if it had remained in the under the jurisdiction of the San Diego Sheriff's Department, it's a pretty good likelihood that it would have been solved.